Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Live It Up. This is the show where we explore and discuss how to take your life to that next level and beyond. We cover health, wealth, relationships, and how to create a life you absolutely love. I'm your host and coach, Fletcher Ellingson. Amy will be joining us later in the show as we take on a subject that a lot of people don't really care for, but a small percentage of people absolutely love. And here's the interesting thing. Whether you like it or don't like it, 100% of people are doing this all day long and just don't realize it. This is a really important topic, so stick around for the conversation. As a reminder, if you have questions that you would like us to address on or off the show, you can send them directly to me at fletcher@fletcherellingson.com. Okay, let's get to today's question. It says, Fletcher, I've heard you and other people in your industry talk a lot about setting goals. Frankly, goal setting seems like a waste of time and doesn't work for me. What else will get me the results I want? Jess. All right, hey Jess, thanks for the email. You know, there are a lot of people who share that sentiment. So today, Amy and I, we're gonna spend the entire show talking about goal setting. We're going to show you that you are in fact doing this on a daily basis and you may not even realize it. And there are a lot of different ways to utilize goal setting. Some are effective, some are not. But first off, I want to offer you a real life example from a study that was conducted in 1979. A group of interviewers asked new graduates from Harvard's MBA program about the use of goal setting. And here were their findings. That first of all, they were asking them if they used goal setting. And 84% of the graduates from this program had no specific goals at all. 84% no goals at all. 13% had goals, but they were not committed to paper. In other words, they hadn't written them down. And then 3% had clear written goals and plans to accomplish them. So here's where it gets interesting. 10 years later, in 1989, the interviewers went back and met with and interviewed those same graduates of that class. Check out these results. The 13% of the class who had goals were earning, on average, twice as much as the 84% who had no goals at all. So the 13% who had goals were earning twice as much as the 84% who had no goals at all. Now here's where it gets even more staggering. The 3% who had clear written goals were earning, on average, 10 times as much as the other 97% put together. 10 times. So, I mean, that just seems like mind-boggling to me. So you can see, at least from this example, the power of goal setting seems to have produced powerful results, at least financially. So let me tell you something else, Jess. Many people are conditioned to give up if something doesn't work. In general, we as a culture are very practiced at giving up. Once we start giving up, it becomes easier to do again and again in any area of life. And you've heard me say that repetition is the mother of skill. That is so accurate. So if you give up a lot, in other words, if you practice giving up, then it becomes a skill. So I want to challenge you to stay in the game of goal setting, because I believe it'll make a difference for you. After the commercial break, we'll dive deeper into this, and I'm going to share how goal setting has helped me achieve the results I wanted in almost every area of my life. So, Amy and I will be back in just a couple minutes. Stay with us. See you soon. Hey, welcome back to Live It Up. Today we're discussing goal setting, what it is, what it looks like, and the benefits of implementing it into your life. We've got Amy with us. Hello, Amy.
Hello.
So we're talking about goal setting. Can you just give us a working definition of what is a goal?
All right, the working definition that we are going to use today is that a goal is an observable and measurable end result having one or more objectives to be achieved within a more or less fixed time frame.
Makes sense?
Yep.
Good.
So I'm going to ask you this. So you said earlier that we're doing this all day long, setting goals, but we don't really know it. What do you mean by that?
Sure. Good question. So we are setting goals all day long. This morning we got up and we had a goal of coming down here to the studio. In order to do that, we had to have the ability to visualize it. We had to have the ability to have awareness around it. We had to plan for it. And the end goal was to arrive here at the studio. There were lots of little objectives that had to be accomplished within the time period of us getting up in the morning and actually getting to the studio.
I had actually times I was going to be done by this time in order to leave the house by a certain time.
Yeah. When in the morning when we get kids off to school, we have, again, the objective is to get the kids off to school. That's the goal, right? We have all those same things that we have to do in the morning. There's lunches to be made, there's showers to be taken, there's rides to be given. All of these things are goals. So we're actually very practiced at goal setting. It just has become something that seems to be on autopilot. The challenge is when you become intentional about the goals that you want to set, that's something that we're not really practiced at. When we say we want to run an Olympic distance triathlon, for instance, that's something we're not practiced at. We're not doing it on a daily basis. So it takes more thought, which takes more energy. And then there's room for other things like fear to come into it and to weigh in, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, are you sure you can do that? Right, we get into this conversation. So, but in general, we're doing it all day long. And so let me ask you a question. Did we arrive at the studio today?
We did, and we actually arrived a little early.
So we were successful goal
High
setters.
five, yeah.
Yeah, we were successful goal setters. So people are successful goal setters all day long. It's just really, the challenge comes when we want to do something out of the ordinary.
Right. And so you also said that a lot of people don't like goal setting. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. Number one is because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we don't like to be uncomfortable.
No.
People, I mean, if you're a human being, your whole desire is to always be in a place that feels good, that feels safe. And when you set goals that are outside of your comfort zone, it's uncomfortable, it doesn't feel safe, and so people don't like that. Richard Bandler is an expert in behavioral change, and one of the quotes he says is that the mind loves what is familiar, but it learns from what is different. And that's really at the heart of goal setting. Our mind, we're afraid to get out of that comfort zone, but when we do, that's when the learning takes place.
Yeah, and it can be fun.
Yeah, and it can be fun.
Yeah.
Another reason people don't like it is because they've experienced that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a big one.
Yeah, they're like, I've tried it, it doesn't work. It's boring, it's painful, it just doesn't work. Meaning that they haven't hit their goals, right? So they've missed it. And again, I talked about this in the intro, it's because we have to become practiced at it. I mean, the first time we tried walking, we fell down. But we got back up and we kept on trying it. If we'd just given up, we'd never learn to walk, right?
Right.
Same with talking.
Yeah.
So goal setting is something that you have to become practiced at. And eventually you're going to hit some of those goals. And when you hit them, guess what? It feels good, which is what we always want. And then we can begin to associate that good feeling with goal setting and create momentum. And then the final thing is it says, people will oftentimes say, it takes too much time to set goals. It takes a lot of time to set goals. Well, I would say, if you don't have the time to set the goals, you're never going to have the time to actually go out and do those things that you really want to accomplish. So that's an excuse, and I encourage people to shift their mindset to like, you know what? Not only do I have the time, I'm going to make the time. I'm going to make it a must because this is really important stuff.
Yeah, cool. All right, so then I know that you are someone who really likes setting goals. Why do you think that you find it enjoyable?
Yeah, good question. So the reason I love it, and I brought a couple of my journals here, and just to kind of show people, I mean, I take this really seriously, and I love journaling because I can go back years and see where I was. You know, I can open it up, and I've got one marked here to some goals I set, I think it was in 2015. And as, I mean, you guys can't see this here, but I've got checked off the ones I made 37 goals in 2015, and I've checked off the majority of them. And what's really helpful is I'll say something like, cut the barrels or paint the bathrooms, and then by a certain date. And I put a date so it really, again, keeps me accountable. Like, this is not just a wish, a pie in the sky wish. I'm writing it down, I'm putting a date by which it has to be done. And then I get to check it off. checking it off feels good, right? And at the end of the year when I see, whoa, I did like 29 of those 37 goals, I feel really good. But this keeps me accountable to the lifestyle that I want to create. And so it's how I've been able to do triathlons. It's how I've been able to increase my finances. It's how I've been able to create the relationships, the rich relationships that I really have in my life, because I've been intentional. And so anyway, so that's why I love goal setting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think we need to take a quick break, so stick with us. We'll be back in a minute.
Welcome back to Live It Up. We are here with Amy and we're talking about goal setting. Before we find out some information about the science behind all of this, we want to talk about SMART goals. And SMART is an acronym which stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. And I'm just going to breeze through this. I know it's a lot, but I want you to really get this information. So let's break this down. We'll talk first of all about specific. When you're setting a goal, the more clarity you can have and the more specific you can be, the more likely you're going to be to really get that goal, right? Because you're going to be able to visualize it. So be really specific. The next thing you want to do, you have that goal be measurable. For instance, you want to be able to determine if you're making progress towards it. So you might have mile markers, or there might, for instance, if it's weight loss, you might have a certain weigh-ins. If it's you're running a triathlon, you might, days of the week have your long runs, your short runs, your rest days, or you may be able to actually see the mileage that you're running. I mean, you're going to be able to see that. So have it measurable. And then you want it to be actionable too. So not just, I want to make more money. How much money do you want to make? By when? And then the actionable is, how are you going to do that? Are you going to ask for a raise? Are you going to work overtime? Are you going to start a side hustle? These are actionable items, things that you can actually take action on. And the next thing is realistic. Setting a goal of making $1 million in 24 hours, I'm not saying it's impossible, but probably not likely. So we want to set you up for success. So when I'm working with clients, I usually tell them, make one goal that's really easy to hit. So you set yourself up for success. Make another goal that's a moderate, that's going to really take some effort, and then also make a stretch goal. And that stretch goal, you may not even know how you're going to do it, but you're going to set that goal anyways. So, but be realistic. And then finally, timely. You don't want to just say, I want to make $1 million in my lifetime, because that's, again, you're not going to be motivated to hit that. So what is the time frame? What's that time frame that you want to get in that smaller size clothing, or run that triathlon, or find that love of your life? So put a date to it, because you'll see that date approaching and it'll be a reminder like, oh yeah, am I in action, right? So it'll keep you accountable. So that's the SMART goal technique. And now I want to hear from you.
Okay.
What's some of the brain science behind all of this?
Well, and some of it you've talked about, and I'll just kind of explain a little bit what's happening, why that works. So one key point to using some of the brain science is to be consistent. There's a study from a few years ago that shows that habits and goals are stored differently in your brain. So you may have a goal, like a dream or a wish or something, and that's actually stored differently chemically in your brain versus habits. And so what you want to do is you want to get these chemical messengers to turn that goal into a new habit. And you're going to do that by repetition. And so even though you don't feel like doing it, for that first little bit, whatever it is, there's different studies that show, but say it's like a month, say you take 30 days and you just make sure, like take flossing your teeth, for instance, that you do it every day even though you don't feel like it, and then pretty soon your brain kind of doesn't think of it anymore as a goal, it just becomes a habit. And that's literally, there are different messengers in your brain, different ways of storing it that changes between a goal and a habit. And you might have to use cues at first, like sticky notes or something on your phone to remind you, but then it eventually becomes a habit. So there's actually literally a difference in your brain. Mm-hmm. The second thing is to change your environment. So sometimes your brain it's so habitual to do a certain thing, like say you sit down in front of the TV and you want a snack, or say you come home from work and you want a drink, or different things. We all know that we have these cues that get us, and we're just doing it before we even know it. And those are really essential when it comes to habit formation, because the brain is really great about connecting your environment with a specific situation and habits. And so, so what you want to do is you want to look at your surroundings when you're trying to change something, when you're trying to create a new habit. So if you're trying to do something at work, do some sort of work and you're at home and you just find yourself totally zoning out, you may need to go to the coffee shop or go to the library or sit in a different place in your house, or say that you don't want to you're trying to not eat sweets after dinner. Maybe you put a mint in your mouth, or you have tea, or you do something different, or say you're going to the gym and you find yourself just not into it anymore and you want to kick up your workout routine. You may need to do something different, get a buddy, or you want to change your environment a bit too. That can get you into breaking old habits and creating new habits, because our brain's really good at connecting our environment with a habit. The third thing is using dopamine to your advantage. And so when you mention that you love checking those off, that's dopamine being released in your brain. It's a really, really powerful pleasure messenger in our brain. And when we get something we want, like a promotion, a treat, we kiss someone we really want to, your brain releases this dopamine and it makes us feel really good. And it's kind of addicting. It's actually the background messenger in a lot of addictions. So it's every time if you make a checklist and you check it off, it feels good. Or the thought of how we ran our morning, it's like, oh, we got up at this time, we did this, this, and this. I can feel good about that. And that's actually dopamine being released in my brain, where I feel like, oh, I did that at 7, that at 8, and then left the house by 9.
I love dopamine.
Yes, you do. I mean, we all love dopamine. And so I know it's a funny thing to say that we love, but that's why people that do checklists, some people resist them, but they're actually kind of fun. And if you start out doing a checklist, if you're someone that doesn't like checklists, do the things that you already do every day, like wake up, brush teeth, have a cup of coffee. You can even start out enjoying checklists, getting that dopamine going, and maybe you'd be crazy and add something in on there that you wouldn't normally do, like take a walk or something like that.
And that's totally setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, exactly. So what you're saying, so if you want to, what you also talked about is doing these goals, that you can really achieve, and not just focusing on these big end game goals. You want to focus on goals that you can achieve so you can get that dopamine kicking, and it makes you want to start doing it more. So from the brain science perspective, you want to stay consistent and repeat what you're doing on a regular basis. Try changing your environment if you're feeling stuck and you're finding yourself not able to achieve those goals you want, and then turn up that dopamine, and you can really make some great changes that you're wanting to make.
I love it. Thanks for that. So we both know that structure is really important to continuing to stay on the path that you've chosen, right? Because there's going to be challenges. So do you have any examples from your patients that stand out of where structure has been really important for them?
Yeah, because I think a big pitfall is we say, oh, I want to do this. Like say you want, I want to save, dogs on the street, but then you don't do anything about it. There's no structure, or you just try to do it yourself. It's not going to work. Or say I have people that want to lose weight, but they're like, yeah, but my husband, he likes to have ice cream every night. It's like, well, that's not, and if that person really likes ice cream, it's not going to probably work, at least in the beginning there, to have that ice cream. So when you decide on a commitment you want in life, really whatever it is, you have to really look at what structure is there in your life to support that commitment. And if the structure isn't there, then your chance of not making it is going to be much higher. So for my patients, a lot of it is around eating or exercise. And again, if they say they want to walk or exercise, but they have no structure, they don't have any equipment, they don't have a buddy, they're not going to go to the gym, they don't have any videos set up on YouTube or whatever, then it's just not going to happen, or it's like going to happen a lot less.
Yeah.
Or I have patients that tell me, like say there's an overweight teenager, it's like, well, all they want to do is eat junk at the house. Well, there needs to be no junk in the house, especially when you're talking about younger people and teenagers and kids. They're not going to make the choices that are uncomfortable. They're going to want that junk food. So you need to have the structure to support your commitment, and that's going to be cleaning out what you have in your house. Or if you're wanting to get up at a certain time, but you're always going to bed late, you need to have a structure to support your commitments, where maybe 5 days a week or 3 days a week you make sure you get to bed on time, and then you can get up in the morning and live out that commitment. So it's kind of just like not shooting yourself in the foot. Try to get your commitment made. You want to really set yourself up for that.
Yeah, so structure, you talked about cleaning out the junk food. And I noticed in our family, we definitely have treats and some junk food around, but we also make it a priority or a structure, I guess you would say, to have healthy snacks around. We have a lot of fruit, we have a lot of vegetables around, and when we put those vegetables out on the counter that we cut up, the kids eat them.
Yeah, they love them.
So I guess that's an example of providing structure, would you say?
Well, yeah, if you have no vegetables but you have chips and dip, I mean, it's going to get eaten. The chips and dip are going to eat, and the veggies aren't. So if you do need to be intentional about what structure you're having.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then also structure would be maybe around family time too. Like, what are you doing with your time? If you're looking to create connection, is that your goal? What's the structure you put in place as the parents? Like, again, in our family, we have time where we play board games and cards and stuff like that. That's another example of structure.
Well, you have to put in the structure, like, hey, it's game night, or it's family night, and this time is phones are off. So that's the structure to allow you to fill out your commitment.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. Do we have time for one more minute? Do you want to talk about accountability, getting a coach, or the people about being cautious about setting goals?
Yeah.
People are afraid to.
Yeah, let's talk about accountability, because that's really going to be a huge piece of this. When you set a goal, you definitely want to make sure you have accountability. When I've had coaches from time to time, and there was a challenge in my life where I was really getting frozen with fear about going out and completing this these tasks actually that I had to do. And so my coach gave me accountability, and he said, go out and buy a can of wet dog food, put it on your counter, and put a spoon by it. He says, if you don't reach these goals, then you film yourself eating this can of dog food and email it to me. Well, I got to tell you, that really got my attention, and I completed those tasks because I didn't want to eat that dog food, and I wanted to be accountable to him. So that's what you got to be sometimes radical in your accountability.
Right.
And so anyway, so that worked.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, hey, that's all the time we have here on Live It Up for setting goals. So it's time to get out there, be a source of kindness, contribution, make a difference. We'll see you next time right here on Live It Up.